but I'm going to make a little video here on how to do a barrel hitch. So the reason why I'm doing a barrel hitch is kind of important. So you can see our mantie loads here. We got these about 70-pound loads, and they kind of end up just long and skinny, right? So if we basket hitch those on her, we got a lot of stuff hanging down, and we got a fairly narrow trail to go out here in a little bit. And so what I'm going to do with a long skinny load like that is we're going to switch, and we're going to put them on there horizontally versus vertically. And to do that, we're going to change the hitch that we use to carry that load. So I know I did a video on how to barrel hitch elk quarters and pack a rack on top of it, which is helpful to know. I'm going to do this one here specifically on gear manties. So hopefully you understand why you would use this hitch and how to do it. First thing I'm going to do is cinch her up tight, just like I normally would. Always make sure your cinch is tight before you start loading. And then we got to change around our ropes a little bit. So the ropes that I normally have on her are set up for a basket hitch, right? That's how they're normally tied on there. To do a barrel hitch, we have to change this a little bit. So first thing we're going to do, I got all those coils in my hand. Stick them right up through there and just undo that. It's a whole lot easier to do it with the coils rather than feed the whole length of the rope through. And then on the back one, I'm going to twist the knot around to where my loop's going through the inside. That's going to be the back half of my barrel hitch. And then on the front half, we're going to stick it through the front. The little trick here is rather than just sticking the bite through, give it one twist and then pull that loop through. So the twist is kind of important. What that allows you to do is when you're pulling the slack or pulling the tail to get the slack out of the rope, it's always the bottom. So to pull the slack out of this rope, I pull this bottom tail. To pull the slack out of the front one, I pull this bottom tail. You can see if I didn't do that loop, now I'm having to pull the slack forward up on her neck. That gets kind of uncomfortable for her. So this way here, I can always pull down, use gravity and my body weight to help me. So that's the start of a barrel hitch. We want our loops kind of big. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, get everything all set. Hang tight, Sally. Get everything ready before we start putting weight on her. So again, I got to undo this. Pull my loops through. Check that away. We're going to loop this through the front. Give it a twist. That's the front half of my barrel. Here's the back. Give it a twist. Stick that through there. The back half of my barrel hitch. Doesn't really matter which side I start on. So on a barrel hitch, I'm just grabbing this load, and I can tell kind of worked out this way because when I made my manties, I did it on purpose. I always put the heavier stuff to the top. Sally, you stay. So I know I want the heavy end of the mantie to go forward on the mule. We're gonna set that right up there like so. Put my first loop over. I'm gonna suck the slack out with that tail. I can kind of hold that, put my second loop over, suck the slack out here on the bottom. So the next part about this is how it rides on her. I kind of want it up tight, somewhat close to the D's. I want the front end slightly higher than the back end, if you can see that. Then I'm going to take my tail, reach over the top. This is the part that's kind of hard for short people. And I'm grabbing the rope that goes between the bars. When I pull that, everything comes nice and tight. So for me, there's two ways to do it from here. Now the first way I showed you, which is when we did the elk quarters, is to take this tail of the rope, come right down to her cinch, loop it back through like so, tie your packer's knot. Packer's knot right here on the outside. That works. The problem is this, you got a lot of movement. Packs get moving around, and when there's not a knot tied right here, you'll eventually work slack into that knot and this load will start to drop. So if you got a nice easy trail and you're not going too far, do the easy route, do what I just showed you. we don't have such a nice trail. So I'm gonna go ahead and tie my knot right here. So to do that, I'm just gonna pull the slack through. Pretty simple. This is just a packer's knot. Okay, now I take the tail of my rope, do the exact same thing. Come down to my cinch, come up to the loop that I just made. And all that does is keep the load from flopping. We're gonna reach through and do a packer's knot. I'll finish that off here in just a second. So same thing on the other side. Try not to leave old Sally hanging there longer than we need to. She's a little longer just because this is an instructional video. I got the wrong one here. There we go. Now, pull that tail. Now loop that one up over the top. Pull the slack out. Now I can kind of check this load, how she's riding. These are even weight manties. They should ride about the same height. It doesn't really matter if they're up high like this or if they're down low, as long as they're even. I like them a little higher. It's kind of personal preference. Thankfully I can tie a packer's knot without seeing it, because it's one downside about doing it this way. Come down to our cinch, back up to my knot, and cinch that all up tight. Reach through, make a packer's knot. Make the loop a little shorter, throw a hitch over the top. There we go. So this is called a barrel hitch. Again, works really good when you kind of got long, skinny things that you got to pack. You're packing boards, things like that for a bridge. Packing tent poles for like a wall tent. If you got 4 or 5 foot poles that you're packing in, say you're not cutting timber when you're in there, pack them like this, use a barrel hitch.